What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to Nine Inch Nails and their classic, The Downward Spiral, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. We could not do it without them. Now, I'm glad that Robert brought this to me because, believe it or not, I've never heard this album. Never really heard much of Nine Inch Nails. I mean, obviously, I know who they are. They're big. I just had kind of dropped out of this sort of music scene in 1994 when this album came out. And Trey and I, my partner in crime on this channel, did an album draft series last year. We were listening to albums from every single year, picked our top 10 albums from each year. And I should have listened to this album during the 1994, but I didn't because I didn't want to. So this is going to force me to. And I have dove head first into research. I have done an insane amount of research on this album. So I really do feel like I know it. I'm going to share some of that research with you. I won't go too overboard, but this album is very important. So a little background on Nine Inch Nails, commonly abbreviated as NIN, is an American industrial rock band formed in Cleveland in 1988. Singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer Trent Reznor was the only permanent member of the band until his frequent collaborator Atticus Ross joined in 2016. When touring, Reznor typically assembles a live band to perform with him under the Nine Inch Nails name. This live band has varied over the decades, with various members leaving and returning. The band's concerts are noted for their extensive use of thematic visual elements, complex special effects, and elaborate lighting. Songs are often rearranged to fit in any given performance, and melodies or lyrics of songs that are not scheduled to be performed are sometimes assimilated into other songs. They've sold over 20 million records, been nominated for 13 Grammys, winning for the songs Wish in 1992 and Happiness and Slavery in 1996. Time magazine named Reznor one of the most influential people in 1997, while Spin magazine has described him as, quote, the most vital artist in music. In 2004, Rolling Stone placed Nine Inch Nails at number 94 on its list of 100 greatest artists of all time, and they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020. Now that we got a little background on, let's talk about this album. It's their second studio album, released in March of 1994. It went to number 2 in the US, going 4 times platinum, number 9 in the UK. It's a concept album detailing the self-destruction of a man from the beginning of his downward spiral to his suicidal breaking point. The album was a commercial success and established Nine Inch Nails as a reputable force in the 1990s music scene, with its sound being widely imitated. I won't get into all of that, but big time. And the band receiving media attention and multiple honors. It's been recognized by critics and audiences as one of the most important albums of the 90s and was praised for its abrasive and eclectic nature and dark themes, although it was sensationalized by social conservatives for some of its lyrics, which has been going on for the last 40 years with conservatives and lyrics. The album features elements of industrial rock, techno, metal, and ambient soundscapes, in contrast to the band's synth pop influenced debut album, Pretty Hate Machine, in 1989. So I got to go back and listen to that because that surprised me. Synth pop influence. Reznor was strongly influenced by David Bowie's Low. We got a review of that up. And Pink Floyd's The Wall. We got a review up of that that's in 2 parts for their themes of introspection and disassociation and their focus on texture and space. Reznor conceived of the Downward Spiral after the band's run in the lineup of the Lollapalooza Festival tour. He was feeling increasingly alienated and disinterested. The band's concerts were known for their radical onstage dynamic in which members acted aggressively, injured themselves, destroyed instruments, and polluted stages. Reznor began to feud with TVT Records, resulting in him co-founding Nothing Records with his then manager, John Malm Jr., as a subsidiary of Interscope. Simultaneously, he began fleshing out the concept for this album, focusing on the life and death of a man who rebels against humanity and kills God before attempting suicide. Reznor frequently struggled with drug addiction and depression, and the themes of the album gradually allergized his living situation. His peers at some point recommended him the antidepressant Prozac, but he declined to be medicated. He wanted the album's sound to diverge from the abrasion of Broken, emphasizing mood, texture, restraint, and subtlety, although he's unsure about its musical direction. The album's production was decided on to aim for full-range sounds, and he focused on texture and space, avoiding conventional usage of guitars or synthesizers with a recognizable sound palette. Subsequently, he worked mainly with the Macintosh computer. Boys and girls, this is 1994 when he's doing this, using music editor programs on the computer to analyze and invert frequencies in tracks as a form of sound design. Reznor searched for and moved to 11050 Cielo Drive in 1992 for recording Broken and The Downward Spiral, a decision made against his initial choice to record the album in New Orleans. 11050 Cielo Drive is referred to as the Tate House since Sharon Tate was murdered by members of the Manson family there in 1969. Reznor named the studio La Pig after the message that was scrawled on the front door with Tate's blood by her murderers, and he stayed there for 18 months. He called his first night there, quote, terrifying. He's already knew it and read books related to the incident. He chose the Tate House to calibrate his engineering skills, and the band bought a large console and 2 Studer machines as resources, a move that he believes was cheaper than renting. After the recording, he moved out of the house, and it was demolished shortly thereafter. This house is very prevalent in the Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, there is some, I'm not going to get, there is some he's at one time said, I didn't know anything about the house. I didn't know that that's what happened there until after the fact. But later on, he said all of this, that he searched it out. He collaborated with Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyro's drummer Stephen Perkins, progressive rock artist Adrian Belew, and Nine Inch Nails drummer Chris Renna. Belew praised Reznor for his, quote, command of technology and commented that the music of Nine Inch Nails made innovations that are in his realm. Reznor frequently sampled excerpts from his guitar session tracks and processed them to sporadic and expressive points to convey the album's themes. Also doing the same with drum parts. So what I'm trying to get across here is Reznor was a genius in the studio. He wasn't just a guy making the music, right? He was a genius in how to make the music, very innovative. British producer and engineer Flood, known for engineering and producing U2 and Depeche Mode albums, was employed as co-producer of the album. It became his last collaboration with NIN due to creative differences. Numerous layers of metaphors are present throughout the Downward Spiral, leaving it open to wide interpretation. It relays nihilism and is defined by a prominent theme of self-abuse and self-control. And as I mentioned earlier, the semi-autobiographical concept album in which the overarching plot follows a protagonist's descent into madness in his own inner world through a metaphorical downward spiral, dealing with religion, dehumanization, violence, disease, society, drugs, sex, finally suicide. Reznor described the concept as consisting of, quote, someone who sheds everything around them to a potential nothingness, but through career, religion, relationship, belief, and so on. It's number 122 on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. They received Grammy nominations for Best Alternative Performance for The Downward Spiral and Best Rock Song for Hurt. That's the last song on the album. We'll get to that later. Now, I talked about critical praise, but it didn't get a lot of critical praise when it was released. NME only gave it a 4 out of 10. Reznor interpreted the Downward Spiral as an extension of himself that, quote, became the truth fulfilling itself as he experienced personal and social issues presented in the album after its release. He had already struggled with social anxiety disorder and depression and started his abuse of narcotics, including cocaine, while he went on an alcohol binge. Around this time, his studio perfectionism, struggles with addiction, and bouts of writer's block prolonged the production of The Fragile, and Reznor completed rehabilitation from drugs in 2001. It's quite a ways afterwards. A little bit of controversy here. The song Big Man with a Gun. So the lyrics. The Downward Spiral's emphasis on transgressive themes drew criticism from American social conservatives, which I mentioned earlier. Senator Bob Dole, then the head of the Republican Party, eventually ran for president, really denounced Time Warner, the former owner of Interscope's former parent company, Warner Music Group. And after a meeting between the head of Warner Music Group and a couple of conservatives, it really went south. Interscope had previously been blamed for releasing gangster rap albums by rappers such as Dr. Dre, Tupac, and Snoop Dogg that were deemed objectionable. Reznor called one of those conservatives, Dolores Tucker, who erroneously referred to Nine Inch Nails as a gangster rap act, such a effing idiot, and claimed that the song was actually a satire of the gangster rap genre as a whole, and was originally about madness. Reznor did concede the Downward Spiral could be, quote, harmful through implying and subliminally suggesting things, whereas hardcore hip-hop could be cartoonish. So it is interesting he admitted that. And one other thing I won't get a lot into, but it was alleged to contribute this album to the Columbine shooting. Before the Columbine High School massacre, perpetrator Dylan Klebold referenced lyrics from Nine Inch Nails songs multiple times in his journal. He heavily identified with the protagonist of the Downward Spiral as a symbol of his own depression. So it's about as far as I'll go to giving either of those clowns involved in that any sort of airtime. All tracks in this are written by Reznor. The music will not be in the video, but it will be in the Vimeo link below. I know it's kind of a long introduction to support an album, and it's also a very long album. It's 65 minutes, 14 tracks. Let's jump into it. With the first track, you see it below, Mr. Self Destructs. It gives a lyrical background of the album's protagonist. It's a title reference to the opening track from British new wave duo Soft Cell's 1984 album, This Last Night in Sodom. The first ideas for the song were conceived after the act's role in Lollapalooza. Production began after completion of Broken in 1992 when Reznor wrote a short poem. This was transformed into a prototype of this song along with many other songs. This is where Reznor sought to include Adrian Belew, as we talked about. So him and Flood invited him to the house surrounding the studio. Upon entering with Pig, he asked, "Hi, what do you want me to do?" The production team communicated back to Belew, who spoke about what tuning the song was played at. Reznor responded, I'm not sure, probably E. See what happens, don't worry about it. Here's the tape and do whatever you want to. Go. Belew eventually recorded what became the odd ending of the song, which obviously we'll get to. Mr. Self Destruct immediately foreshadows the aesthetic and tone of the rest of the album. The opening of the song, he does this on several songs, features different things. Features a sample from the George Lucas-directed THX 1138 of a man being beaten by a prison guard while flanked inside a jail, cutting immediately to Reznor's aggressive voice delivering the verses and chorus. The lyrics introduce the antagonist of the downward spiral, who ominously calls himself, quote, the voice inside your head. He represents the urges of sexuality, powers of addiction, and inescapable feelings of guilt and fear. He appears to be violent, even sociopathic at certain points. He says, I am the bullet in the gun, but also claims to represent the purposes of religion and the ultimate unattainable goal of all human desire. The lyrics employ consistent repetition, with every line in the verses taking the form, I am the, and I control you. The chorus maintains a first-person voice as well, creating an aggressive, intimate, almost confessional tone, which Reznor sustains throughout the record. Don't worry, every introduction, every song's not like this, but this sets the tone. This was used in a Levi's commercial, so I might know it from that. The interesting thing on this, Trent is on everything. He's vocals, guitar, bass, keyboards, programming. The only thing we got on here is Adrian Belew with the texture generating guitar. Otherwise, it's all Trent. The lyrics are going to be up as always. Thanks again, Robert. Mr. Self Destruct. What a fascinating song. Just a fascinating song, the way it all went down. It took me, the intro, like I was saying, off the George Lucas movie and all that going on. And then you couldn't really hear Trent until the more I listened, the more I could get. I mean, I'm looking at the lyrics, so obviously I know what's going on. And then when that bridge came, you let me do this to you, I am an exit. So they repeat that 8 times, but he's whispering it. Everything dials back. And then that guitar outro that Adrian Belew laid down was just a few seconds, and they just repeatedly ripped it for 30 seconds. So just a really interesting song. And I mean, in the narrative of it all, he's this thing inside you, because we all have self-destruction inside of us, right? We all have that self-destructive nature because we like to do whatever we want. And those things can lead us down the wrong path. We like to indulge in things that we shouldn't. So he's kind of bringing that out. So, wow, it's fantastic. Next up, we have Piggy. Reznor wrote the song after the extended play Broken in 1992 was completed. It was initially a poem, just like the last song, which expanded into a full song. The frantic drumming on the outro is Reznor's only attempt at performing drugs on the record, and one of the few, quote, live drum performances on the album. He has stated that the recording was from him testing the microphone setup in studio, but he liked the sound too much not to include it. Former Nine Inch Nails guitarist Richard Patrick has claimed in various interviews that Piggy was Reznor's nickname for him, and that the song was written in response to Patrick leaving the band. So it was a single, went to 20 on the Billboard Modern Rock charts. Trent's the only one on here. He's credited with vocals, guitars, bass guitar, piano, organ, synths, drums, and percussion. All right, Piggy. Not at all what I expected, right? Coming out of that industrial sound of Mr. Self Destruct. That one was totally different. Just almost a whisper delivery with all the different instrumentation in here and the way he was manipulating the sound, the way Trent was doing that. But this one's only meant to the girl left him, right? And now nothing can stop me now because I don't care anymore. So he's going down that road. There's a lot of things I hoped you could help me understand. What am I supposed to do? I lost my blank because of you. Nothing can stop me now because I don't care anymore. The way he whispers it, right? It lends to the gravity of it. Instead of shouting it, sometimes you can get the message is even stronger if you whisper it. So really well done. As we progress the story up to the third track, Heresy. In an interview with You magazine published in April of 1994, Trent spoke about the meaning behind the lyrics of this song. He said, quote, I was trying to explore some of the paranoia I have as a sexually active person in the age of AIDS, he said, of Heresy. I guess I feel cheated for not growing up in a more liberated era. At the same time, what gets me mad is the way the right wing has used the, quote, convenience of this epidemic in helping to promote their own agenda. All right, Harris, he went back to much more driving music. I'll tell you right now, guys, I mean, if you watch this channel, you know, I'm a Christian, so this song, it's going to be a no-go for me. But in the story, in the arc of the story, he's put his faith in God and in Christianity. Now he's telling you God is dead. I mean, I get where he's going with like the conservative Christians, because I know back then a lot of them said that God brought on AIDS because of homosexuality. And here's the problem. People don't read the Bible. They go to these morons who call themselves Christians, and they think that's what Christianity is. I get it, because they represent themselves as members of it, but they have the furthest understanding of what Christianity is, and those people who have never opened the Bible. So just always keep it real here. The song is going to be a no-go for me, but as it progresses the story, he's going farther and farther down, right? So now we go to March of the Pigs, which was the lead single. Only went to 59 in the US, 45 in the UK. 13 years after its release, it debuted at number 9 and peaked at number 6 on the Canadian singles chart. I found that fact, but I couldn't find out why. So anyway, all right, March of the Pigs. Taking a little, he said he was inspired by Pink Floyd The Wall, but Pink Floyd, the album Animals, has a song on their Pigs where they're talking about what Trent's talking about, the people who feed on you, right? The people who just use you up. They want what you got, they use you up, and then they have no use for you, which would continually draw him down, obviously, this downward spiral. But very interesting. In the middle of the song, you almost had a dance beat in there with the bass and drum. At the end, we ended out with just the piano. So, yeah. Next up, we have the only song I've heard off of this album. I actually did a reaction to the video of this song. I don't remember it. You know, when you pull a song out of an album like this, at least for the first time, and don't know the narrative of the album, it loses some of its power. But we got Closer, the second single, 41 in the US, 25 in the UK. It's the most popular song. Most versions of the single are titled Closer to God, a rare example in music of a single's title differing from the title of its A side. The single was the 9th official Nine Inch Nails release, making it Halo 9 in the band's official Halo numbering system. I'm not going to get into all that either. It's built around a heavily modified sample of the bass drum from the 1977 Iggy Pop song Nightclubbing, which is performed by a rolling drum machine. Lyrically, it's a song about self-hatred and obsession. To Reznor's dismay, the song was widely misinterpreted as a lust anthem due to its chorus. You can hear its chorus when we get in here. And this song has some high acclaims. Voted 62 on Triple J's Hottest 100 of all time in 2009. 42 on Pitchfork's Top 200 Tracks of the 90s in 2010. 2021 was listed at 270 on Rolling Stone's Greatest 500 Songs of All Time. You can see how people just took that chorus, right, and just made it all about sex. Trent said in an interview, it's super negative and super hateful. It's, I'm a piece of blank, and I'm declaring that. And if you think you want me, here I am. I didn't think it would become a frat party anthem or stripper anthem. This song is brilliant, right? It's so well produced and arranged. You do have Chris Renna on drum samples and Flood on special hi-hat programming. So you kind of got everybody in. This is kind of putting everything together musically, all the different sounds, along with the lyricism. It's just really, really good. And yeah, you can have my isolation. You can have the hate that it brings. You can have my absence of faith. You can have my everything. Saying, yeah, like he said in the quote, like, I'm nothing, but if you want me, here I am, and I will basically just drag you down with me. Next up is Ruiner. Now, Trent said this was the hardest song to write. In a 1994 interview, said, I still don't know if I got it right. I have such a bad vibe from that song now, from it sucking in so many different ways. There was actually 2 different songs stuck together. All right, Ruiner. So he's either talking to God or he's talking to a religious leader, right? Because most religious leaders, at least here in America, are false prophets who are just trying to line their own pockets, right? So he's saying all these things about the ruiner. Then he kind of realizes there's a part of the ruiner in him, that he can be a ruiner. So at the end, he's just like in the outro, you didn't hurt me, nothing can hurt me. You didn't hurt me, nothing can stop me now. He just keeps going on and on. It's kind of his coping mechanism, right? To deal with the pain. He's going numb, right? So the ruiner can't harm him. So we have the becoming. All right, the becoming. I think it's kind of building into the next song. I do not want this, but I mean, I had to stop it there so we could break it down. And this one's pretty simple in the breakdown of how he's going. He's describing a transformation, like not literally, but figuratively, of going from man to machine, where he's kind of killing all his feelings and he doesn't feel anything. And he kind of sees that as freeing, right? Because he doesn't have to feel the pain anymore. But as we're halfway through the album, I mean, that's the beginning of the end when you shut everything off. So now we're going to go into I Do Not Want This. I Do Not Want This. So this is a song where it kind of seems like the part in the album where, we slowly going down, quote, the downward spiral. But now he's in that last battle, right? Whether he's in the battle with the machine from the previous song or with Mr. Self Destruct that we were introduced to in the album opener, that he's fighting back and forth. And like, this is not, he says in the pre-chorus, I do not want this. And then the chorus, and you don't tell me how I feel. Don't you tell me how I feel. You don't know just how I feel. But then in the interludes, it's like the inside of him is talking back to him. But then at the very end, I want to know everything. I want to be everywhere. So he almost wants to be godlike now, right? Omniscient and omnipotent. I want to F everyone in the world. I want to do something that matters. He just repeats that over and over again. So he's finally given in, I think, to that self-destructiveness of just not caring absolutely at all. Maybe the fight is gone. I don't know. We're going to find out. Next up, we have the shortest song on the album by far, but one of the most controversial, Big Man with a Gun. Big Man with a Gun. It's not about a gun. It's sexual, right? I mean, it's not really... And as far as how it fits in the narrative, I don't know that it does a lot. Trent said I'd written those lyrics pretty quickly and didn't know if I was going to use them or not. To me, downward spiral builds to a certain degree of madness, then it changes. That would be the last stage of delirium. So the original point of Big Man with a Gun was madness, but it also was making fun of the whole misogynistic gangster rap BS. So, it's a minute and a half song. It's mainly sexual. Next up, we have A Warm Place, which, looking at the lyrics, there hardly are any lyrics. So interested what this is. All right, A Warm Place. The intro says, the best thing about life is knowing you put it together. Like, it's very, very quiet. So I don't know if this is like coming here to kind of take us from maybe now he's actually died to anything that he cares about. And now he's just going to turn totally the opposite way in these last 4 tracks, but let's find out. We have Eraser up next. All right, Eraser. Similar to the last track, A Warm Place, whereas A Warm Place had wonderful piano work and just, this great vibe to it. This one is much more, I want to say frantic, like it builds you as it's going on, right? It builds you into feeling kind of what he's going through, like he's kind of going downhill. And then the song itself, it's just one verse. Talking to the girl first, need you, dream you, find you, taste you, F you, use you, scar you, break you. So it kind of goes through what we've talked about so far in the album, the things he was holding on to. Then lose me, hate me, smash me, erase me. And then he just says, kill me multiple times. First time he's mentioned suicide. And so he's building as we go into Reptile. All right, Reptile, a little ambiguous on how it fits into the story. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's talking about a girl or his own self-being, when I think he's talking about a girl, but of course, oh my beautiful liar, oh my precious whore, my disease, my infection, I am so impure. Or is he talking about the inhuman side of himself, or the ruiner and all those other things? I don't know, but maybe the next track, which is the title track, the Downward Spiral, maybe that'll make it clear. All right, the Downward Spiral. Interesting in that it's much more chilled until we get to the vocal part where Trent is just talking. He's not singing it. And then it really distorts it up. I mean, I can read the lyrics because you have to listen really close. But, it starts off with, he couldn't believe how easy it was. He put the gun into his face, banging it. So he's imagining the suicide, but it's a third person. And then the outro, the deepest shade of mushroom brew, all fuzzy, spilling out of my head. So he's imagining the suicide without doing it. So the ruiner is kind of telling him, this voice in his head is kind of telling him, look, you can fix this in this easy way. And he's imagining it unfold, but he goes from third person to first person. So I thought that was an interesting turn, and just that little spoken word of just two little verses. All right, we go to the closer. It's Hurt. It received a Grammy Award nomination for Best Rock Song in 1996, 8 on the U.S. alternative charts. Obviously, in 2002, the Johnny Cash version became way more famous. The related music video is considered one of the best of all time. And Trent, when he heard that Johnny was doing this song, was like, I don't know about this Then when he saw that video, he said, "This song isn't my own anymore. He's taken it away from me because it was so good." And I've got a review of that album that Cash did it on up. I've got all of the American series up for Cash. But the song includes references to self-harm and heroin addiction, though the overall meaning of the song is disputed. Some listeners contend that the song acts as a suicide note written by the song's protagonist as a result of his depression, while others claim that it describes a difficult process of finding a reason to live in spite of depression and pain, and does not have much to do with the storyline of the downward spiral. I mean, going into it, I've got to read the lyrics again, right? I know the lyrics, but then I don't know the lyrics as you think about, as it fits into the narrative of this story. And Trent's on everything: vocals, guitar, bass, piano, synths, and Chris Wren is adding a little drums here. So let's finish this off. Hurt. That song's fantastic. I've never listened to it. I've thought about it before, because I would really like the Cash version. But I just assumed, because I had this assumption of Nine Inch Nails, which I'll get into in a minute when I talk about this overall album, there's going to be some hard driving, industrial thing. And man, that song was fantastic. That song was fantastic. Like his performance, Trent's performance on this song is great. It's every bit as good as the Cash version. I'll say that right now. And Trent said this about the song. He said, "I wrote some words and music in my bedroom as a way of staying sane about a bleak and desperate place I was in." In another interview with Rolling Stone, he said, "A song based on the most personal sentiments, the deepest emotions I've ever had. We were crying when we made it. It was so intense. I didn't know if I even wanted to put it on the album." So some people believe he did kill himself in the last one. This is like some sort of quasi after-death reflection. I think he's battling those thoughts of death, right? Of killing himself. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end. That's the pre-chorus and the chorus. "You could have it all, my empire of dirt. I will let you down. I will make you hurt." His outro: "If I could start again a million miles away, I would keep myself. I would find a way." I don't think he's doing it yet. I think he's trying to talk himself out of doing it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm curious about that, because there's definitely a definitive one side or the other on this song. Maybe I just want to believe that. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. Honorable mention: Piggy, Faye's Mr. Self Destruct, Closer, and then this last song, Hurt, I think might have been my favorite. Now we'll get to my overall score. A year ago, I had to look it up, as a full year ago, it doesn't seem like it, I did Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche for Robert, the patron who brought this one. They remind me a lot of each other, not in the fact they're on the same subject matter, but the way they unfold the story. And they're not worried about making catchy tunes, right? They're doing whatever it takes to unfold the story and really make you step into this character. And I think this album's brilliant. And I think Trent's brilliant. It's just fantastic in the way it takes you down. These things are always hard to take in on one listen, right? And this is not something that you're just going to throw on and spin, or I'm not. Right? You kind of got to make a commitment to go through the whole thing. Now, you might throw on Hurt, or you might throw on Closer and enjoy that. But on the whole, this is a piece of art as much as it is a piece of music, right? It's telling a story in a very creative, deep way. So on all of those notes, I'm still going to be at a sky-high grade on first listen. I'm going to be at a 9.0, which is very, very rare on first listen, just because this is just brilliant in every bit of the lyricism, but then the production and the arrangement of it is just fantastic. So thank you to Robert for bringing this one to me. Let me know what you think of this album down below. What are your favorites? What do you think Hurt is about? Did he do it? Did he not do it? And what else should I check out from Nine Inch Nails? And until next time, guys, I will see you.